So in our civ class, it's our good fortune that we get to spend a few days on the history of modern painting, and the whole scope of it, and so we get to indulge in beautiful things for a few days. Our work can be to enjoy things that are pleasant and beautiful in themselves. So lucky us. Now, some people are interested in looking at painting. Some people uh, don't take to it. Some people are bored by it. Some people excited. But there can be a difficulty in finding a way to talk about paintings. Not that there isn't a difficulty in, say, talking about a text by Locke or Shakespeare, but those are words, and even Shakespeare contains arguments. And so this gives you a way to get a grip and to get going. The conversation seems already started when you come to it. But a painting is not words, it's an image, and so it can be a little harder to know what to say and where to begin. My way of handling this problem is to think that the artist at some point is always just looking at a pure blank canvas and the pure flat expanse of the thing that he or she is going to paint on. And then they have all the choices in the world. Anything can be depicted in a painting. And then to try to work out what choices they made and to see how they, once they'd made the bigger decisions, how they followed through with the smaller ones. There's always a way to find an intelligible human dimension to any painting. Here we have one of the great Renaissance masters. I'm sure you're familiar with Leonardo da Vinci. He has painted the Annunciation, which is a story out of Christian scriptures that Mary, the mother of Jesus, doesn't understand that she's going to be the mother of Jesus. She doesn't know she's going to be a mother at all. She doesn't know the importance of her baby. And an angel, a messenger from heaven, comes to tell her. And there's a beautiful passage in words, Luke 1, verses 26 through 30 or so. You could look it up if you're interested. But what is happening? Mary is getting a blessing from an angel because she's going to be the mother of God on earth. And this shows one opportunity that all painters have. Painters have a special ability to allow us to see what can't be seen. They're a real event that is past, or something that's distant, or even something very common but particular. We wouldn't be seeing it if the painter hadn't painted it. And here we get an extreme version, a story that we would have heard on. We would be asked by the common religion to believe in it and understand its beauty. But without the help of a painter, we can't see it. And this gives anyone born with talent a decision to make, which is not really different from people born with other kinds of talents. But if you've got the talent, how do you use it? Do you use it out of duty to support the high and noble things in your community? Do you use it for your own sake? Do you follow your own path, or do you stick to the tradition? This is the moral dilemma that everybody faces. And painters just face the same question we all have through their talent. So, some people are courageous, and then they would have a duty to join the army to defend their nation. And some people feel that duty and honor it. Some people do not feel they are compelled in this way. But it's clearly a moral question. other things that you can do to run a business, or be a doctor, say, also pose this question. And for painters, there is a question: will you use your talent in service of the common opinions and the common view of the noble and what's high and good? Leonardo clearly said yes to that question. We are here seeing events from the scriptures which otherwise we could not see, but now they are beautifully realized, presented to us in the most charming way. The people of his nation, most of whom could not read, could nevertheless participate in the story, could be reminded of the words that they've heard through seeing this. And if Leonardo hadn't put his talents this way, they wouldn't have that same opportunity. Here is another artist who has done who has made the same choice. It's an illustration of a different story. This is a story of the birth of the baby Jesus, who was not born in human surroundings, but in a barn, and was visited by low people, but also high people, the great kings called magi, who come to pay their respects. These are further stories from the Christian scriptures. And here again, because of the efforts of this artist, we are able to see them. Now, this is a painting in a different style, and it's not a modern style, and one can learn a lot from noting the differences. You will notice that from our modern perspective, this looks a bit clunky, although it's clearly a beautiful painting in its way, but it looks less realistic than this, which is brilliantly clear and almost like a photograph. But I think it will be helpful for us not to see this as a good version, a better version of what this attempts to be, but to understand the different goals of these paintings, and that will help us understand what some of the different choices artists make might mean to us. This is a traditional icon. You probably have heard that word thrown around a lot, but this is the original, an example of the original that is adopted for many other uses. It's part of the tradition of Orthodox Christianity, which treats art as sacred. It's close to being the direct opposite of the Islamic tradition. The paintings were thought to have a value on par with Scripture. Individual paintings were thought to be divine. They had certain miracles associated with them. They had a history as divine objects, and they were copied many times. Thus, our use of the word icon. They're usually pictures of saints and holy people of some kind. They're not always story pictures like this one, but they are sacred originals, of which there are many copies. And all of that comes over into our use of the word icon. But one thing you might notice is that the perspective is different. If we look at this, it obviously is using the magic of painting. That's something which is flat, which really only has two dimensions. It goes right and left, and it goes up and down, and that's it. It doesn't come front and back. Nevertheless, looks like it has volume. It comes. It seems to have the extra dimension that it's missing when we look at it. if we compare, we might think that the perspective is much sharper, much more scientifically done, much more accurate in this picture. And I think there's a clue there, but again, it helps not to get caught up on better and worse. That it is instructive that at the beginning of the modern history of painting, the same science that energized the world and thrilled the world made a difference in painting as it did to medicine and power and mechanics, and that the improvements of painting through the scientific impulse of modernity seemed like a good argument for the superiority of modernity to many people living through it. So it's clearly more scientific, but this painting does not have that goal. It obviously is pointing in different directions, and you will notice that the people do not all seem to be on the same scale. They're all clearly recognizable as human beings. You can pick out their features, but they come in all different sizes. Jesus is rather small, but right in the center. Mary is very large, there to the right of the baby. And this reflects not the way we see things, but we might say the way things are. Mary is the most important person in this picture after Jesus, and therefore it seems fitting that she be larger. The other figures are mostly of more or less the same size, but we see the elements of the common story in this picture, with people representing not simply how they might look in experience, but how we should think about them. Jesus was greeted on his birth by a number of shepherds, so common people. You can see them at the bottom, but also these people called the Magi, the kings from the east. You can see them in the center left of the picture, in somewhat fancier clothes, coming to bring gifts to Jesus. And they're small compared to Mary because they lack importance compared to Mary. They have to be there for the picture to be what it is. But they're given that sort of perspective rather than a more scientific one. There's no reason to imagine that the actual Mary was twice the size of normal human beings, but we ought to register here added importance. You can see in the lower left corner Joseph, who, as the husband of Mary but not the father of her child, is traditionally painted at some distance from his wife. They're generally not quite right together, but it's a notable gap between them. This is part of the conventions of storytelling in painting, that when you get used to it, you can work out how the artist has, if that's the goal of the painting, manages to tell a linear story where one event happens after another, in a single image.